watching KPVI News at 10 Weekend. News that works for you.
There's a bill or competing bills on whether there's going to be a repeal of the grocery tax.
Dustin Manwaring sat down with us to discuss the delay of the end of the legislative session. Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Deanne Coffin. Idaho legislators say they are extending the legislative session past their scheduled end date. They say they have a few big items on the table that still need to be resolved. Idaho legislators are going past the end date of the legislative session at the state capitol in Boise. Local state representatives say they still have a couple of big items to resolve before leaving this year's session.
One of them is transportation funding and how we have ongoing funding for transportation and transportation projects around the state, including emergency funding for the winter that we've had. That still has to pass the House. So we have that left on the table to resolve.
The second big item on their plate is whether there is going to be any form of tax relief this session.
There's a bill or competing bills on whether there's going to be a repeal of the grocery tax, and there's also been a bill whether we're going to lower the corporate and individual income tax rate.
Manwaring tells me that education got $50 million more this year for an increase in teacher salaries.
So all the education budgets got approved, and that's a good step for Idaho. We continue to put a focus on education, how we're improving not only teacher pay and retaining teachers in our state, but we did some funding for insurance benefits.
The state representative says INL is asking the state to float $90 million in bonds to pay for two INL proposed facilities for them to lease from the state. One of those buildings would host a new supercomputer, and the other building would be used for cybersecurity research. Manwaring says they hope to wrap up the legislative session sometime this week.